Hi everyone, my name is Itimi, and you're welcome to another episode of Founders Connect, but live. On this show, I interview amazing African entrepreneurs and senior operators, and we learn all about their journey. So where they're from, how they got to where they're going, where they are right now, the products that they're building, their life lessons, and as much as we can about them in 30 minutes to 1 hour. On this very, very special episode, the first ever live in London, I have clap. See, for the clap. Thank you. I need a clap sound for the cameras too. But yeah, on this very special occasion, I have Tosin, the CEO of Moniepoint Group. They make sure that I led the group. I've been wanting to speak to Tosin for a long time. And the reason is because I think when people think about some of the startups that have shaped the ecosystem in Nigeria, and startups who are not just in the continent anymore, but have sort of translocated and are having like impact in different continents. Moniepoint is one of those group. I saw the announcement when they were named as one of the fastest growing in Financial Times. I've seen recently they sponsored Big Brother Nigeria. They released a consumer-focused business. There's a lot that Moniepoint has done, so this is very much an honor. And I'm hoping that you guys learn as much as I learn. Because Founders Connect sessions are usually for me first. I feel like I sit down, learn a lot, but I also hope that you guys enjoy this episode. So sit back, relax, grab your popcorn, and enjoy my YouTube channel. Okay, so Tosin, I usually start from the beginning. I want to know you first. So we'll talk about Moniepoint, but it's really about you as a person. So what are the 3 words you would use to describe who you are?
Who I am. Okay, at the core, I think I am restless.
I didn't see that coming.
Yeah. At the core, I'm restless. I'm a builder. I like building. And I'm also shy. So how do you combine being shy and restless?
Exactly. Please, that's the next question.
So, well, I mean, it is what it is. We're all different human beings at the end of the day. I think it's, okay, the restlessness is in, I have a 6-year-old daughter now. And just before I left, I was organizing Lego Mindstorms for her. And I could see, I don't know if you know Lego Mindstorms and how you could teach people how to code on it. And just before then, yesterday, her mom was sending me videos of how she was learning how to play a piano. And I could see the restlessness in her. You're always looking for stimulation. And if you're not into drugs, then the next stimulation that you generally need then interesting things to build. So I think that's restlessness. However, humans are complicated. The whole protocol of how to deal with human beings and, back and forth, sometimes it's tiring for me. So that's why I'm shy. So at the end of, and I'm not a bad person, so I just wish you can always just keep that whole initial stage of getting to know each other and just become cool.
I feel you.
So then I now love to build, so that kind of describes me.
That's a really cool one. So you've given us a bit of background on who you are now. I want to know like the behind the scenes, the background. Tell me a little bit about growing up. Where did you grow up? What was family like? Tell me your favorite childhood memory as well.
Yes. I grew up in Ibadan. I'm the first of 3.
It's like there are Ibadan people here.
I grew up in Ojo. Okay. All right. So I'm the first of 3. I'm the first one. And I think, so I think my restlessness and curiosity to build has always been there. My mom was a teacher. My dad was an engineering contractor. I grew up in a, average African family, struggling. You know what I mean. Like, could meet, could meet school fees sometimes. Struggle to meet school fees sometimes. So, I think one of the things that made me really say, okay, I'm going to work really hard, is I hated heat.
It's like the UK weather.
I think so, except the darkness. Yeah, so I hated heat and I just couldn't fathom why they'll take the life and you sleep in heat. And I'm like, when I grow up, I'll have a seat in my house. and I know you have to be rich to afford AC, so so it's to work hard. So, but it was cool. My mom was the entrepreneur, and my dad was the engineer. So I think, and also I didn't really have toys growing up, so I now began to improvise. So all those. I don't know if you grew up in the trenches. Those boys that will be pulling tire. I wasn't there. The difference is that I did it in my house. They didn't let me go outside. So, but that's why I started building contraptions essentially. So when you have all this, I remember there was a time I and my friend we put a bet against ourselves that we're going to build a toy car. I was in GS2 or GS3. We're going to build a toy car. And my friend went to buy a toy car and dismantled it. And I got a motor. I don't know who knows all those things. I got a motor and, put all those things together. And, I think that was the beginning of saying, okay, so if I put myself to something, I can build it. I think one of the moments that I remember growing up is when my mom bought me at least one. It was a plastic truck. And I decided to, pick it apart and, build something else out of it. I used to get into trouble a lot. I was the day I went to my dad's car radio and opened it up and took out the motor. And our TV, I think I left the TV because I needed the TV. But I touched the radio and took out the motor. So yeah, I love motors. So I used to pick up a lot of motors for everything. Yeah, so I think those are some of the moments I remember.
What was school? What was schooling like? And kind of give us your history, like what schools you went to, what you studied, and how you started your career.
Okay, so I went to, my primary school was in UI Staff School. I don't know if you know that. That's University of Ibadan Staff School. Then I went to a command day secondary school in Odogbo, Ibadan. Anybody here? Yeah, command. Correct. All right. So then from there I went to Great Fair. Great Fair.
It's like your people are here.
So what was school like? I liked school. I typically start in second or third row. And you know what that meant. I didn't want to be the attention, but I was also not a backbencher. So I liked school. I liked the learning. I liked the sciences. I didn't have like a very long attention span, but at least I listened. So I think my primary school, I was a good student in my primary school, really good student. Then in my secondary school days, I think I was generally top 3, top 5. The reason why I'm not usually number 1 is because I'm not serious. I was never a serious student. In my university days, there were 3 very unserious people in my class. You know what they call unserious, right? And I was the third person.
So not the first.
Exactly, I was the third person. But I still managed to get a good grade. I still finished with 4 points. But I remember in Ife, in my final year, and there was because Ife was when I started entrepreneurship, and I used to build software projects and hardware projects for final year students, people in computer science or elect. There's this final year project that you do, and it's important. It's like maybe 6 units. So, and it's a recurring thing. It's every year. So there are like maybe 5 or 10 students every year that don't know what to do. So they'll come to people like us. So that's how I made my money in school. And in the final year, the normal final year workload, I now took more projects than I could bite. And he almost finished me. And I couldn't go to classes, and I even missed tests. There was one exam that I did, and I felt like I'm going to fail this exam. I didn't go to the class at all. I didn't know what they were talking about. Normally, what I used to do is I would not go to classes, but at the maybe a month to exam, you know the drill. You gotta read everything. You gotta kill yourself in classes. But at this time, I didn't have the time, and I just did. Maybe I finished in 30 minutes, a 3-hour exam. And I knew I was going to fail that class, and
And so you failed it?
I didn't. I didn't fail it, but I didn't fail it not because I didn't fail that exam. I didn't fail it because my lecturer looked at me and said, "This boy is not. No, this boy he should not have failed this exam. Something went wrong." And that was the only exam of all my classes that maybe could have been a failure. So he let it go, which I'm grateful to him till today. I actually still have nightmares still today. Like, I still sometimes wake up like if you had an extra, it's okay. Like, but I still wake up sometimes, still recently, anxious that I had an extra year. Up till today. So, yeah, but school, I was generally an unserious student, but I did very well generally.
Hustler.
Exactly, yeah, but mostly because I was hustling. And that kind of formed my bandwidth for my explanation for hiring people later as the organization grew. What I look for is bandwidth. I look at your history and look at how much outputs that you have had. It means that even if you failed in school, I will still hire you. We hired people that, probably had third class, or you must compensate with something. The reason you failed is because you are doing something else. And if that thing is relevant, it's all about our intelligence is directed into something that's finite. You can put some into school, you can put something into hustling, you can put everything into hustling, nothing into school, but at least you'll have an evidence of what you were doing with it.
You jumped into a question I was going to ask in the future, so thank you in advance. But since we're talking about Moniepoint, let's go into like your journey to entrepreneurship. I read an article of yours where you mentioned that you said you were going to spend 5 years in paid employment before you built your business. I want to have an idea into that thinking. Why 5 years? And did you always know? Because you mentioned earlier that you wanted to have enough money to buy an AC. But was it I want to also be an entrepreneur or just have money? So what was the thought process?
I think it's both. I always wanted to build, not be an entrepreneur. It wasn't like I want to be an entrepreneur, be a CEO, or be having this kind of interviews. I just wanted to build. I just wanted to build because I loved building. I loved building something and seeing it outside, and I knew that you can make money from that. I think that was it for me. Then, after I finished school, I studied mechanical engineering, but with all those financial projects I did, so I had connections because many of them have now entered the industry. So it's one of them that took me into InterSwitch. Just like, I know this guy, hire this guy. So that's how I got into InterSwitch. And I made the decision to get to InterSwitch rather than starting off straight as an entrepreneur, because I felt like you need to understand the state of the art if you are going to challenge the state. And InterSwitch, up till today, it still was one of it was actually even the main fintech company to work with. It was the cool fintech. So, and I was like, okay, you know what? If I'm going to get into technology, it's a better idea that I join InterSwitch because there I understand the state of the art. I had choices there. I did my internship in Shilomije, and oil is also a good path. So I had in mind, I had 3 paths in mind. The first path was get into Switch and do what be an engineer, understand the state of the art, and start something. The second path was find a way to get into oil because of my internship and the third one was jackpot to the US. And the riskiest path is the path of going to InterSwitch and doing this because all my friends, a lot of them, we're all here now, right? And jackpot started most of them are jackpot then, and they were jackpotting and going to good schools and finding their lives. The second path, oil was already becoming clear that this might have a problem in the future. So I wasn't too keen. I didn't pursue it too much. So the path I eventually pursued was this path, and the reason I joined InterSwitch was let me understand. Now, when I joined InterSwitch, I actually enjoyed my first few years, and I feel like I would not have even done what I'm doing if I was given the chance to build. Because what I was really looking for is to build. And it's one of the things I also make sure that we do correctly at Moniepoint. At the end of the day, a lot of people, we were lucky in Moniepoint. Entrepreneurship is actually it's a combination of luck and ability. Let's be very honest. there are things just need to align, stars need to align. You do your part, you do your work, but there are many times that people hustle and you don't see the results. So I knew it was very risky, and sometimes it's okay to offer a path for people, and especially when that path can be connected to some level of financial returns that is more than just salaries. So I was looking for that in industry. I actually asked my boss then that if I join this company, is it possible that I will do something, and because of that thing I do, I can be given some level of, reward, equity or whatever. It wasn't even equity for me. It was something beyond salary. And to them, it was, okay, yeah, we're going to consider it. And so these days, as I'm talking to people these days, I see it in people also. There are people that just want to build, and sometimes having an ecosystem where people can actually do things like that can create a win-win environment for everybody.
That's such a good answer. Get your clap now. Thank you. So tell us about the transition, right? So now you've talked about why you left into Switch, and what the thought process around starting the employment and eventually going to be your own. But how did Moniepoint itself come to be? The idea and even creating a team. And there was an article, I read it was an article about you before this. You talked about bootstrapping before even raising money and having a product. Right now, there are a lot of people who are like, if I want to build, I must raise money because everybody's raising money. But you bootstrapped for a while. So that process as well, before you saw, we have a market and now we can go in and do more stuff.
Yeah. Okay. So after 5 years in the Switch, I felt like I wasn't enjoying myself. That's why I met Felix actually. That's my co-founder now. The way I met Felix was it was an engineering manager. We were given a project. The project was failing. It wasn't really doing what it wanted to do, and I felt like the product guys did not ship. They still don't know shit till today. And I was like, okay, you know what? Let's build this thing the right way. So I, Felix, and Okwe, follower show. We used to now come during weekends, Saturdays and Sundays, on our time and build things for the company. And like I said, I was just looking for to build. And after we had all that effort, my intention was to go demo it to the CEO or the management team. And I'd already done something prior to that. I built this, I had been doing point of sale for a while actually. So I built this point of sale system where rather than programming them in C, typically point of sale those days were programmed in C, now you now have Android devices. I kind of came up with a markup language using XML, an XML markup language, and Lua scripting. Technical guys, if you know what I'm saying, and Lua script. It just essentially was a way to program point of sale devices, multiple manufacturers using a single language. So normally all the different point of sale, one of them maybe you need to speak English to it, and now they have different SDKs. So one single SDK for all of them. So after that, I was looking for something next to pick on. So we now pick on those projects, but I felt like the management did not appreciate it, or they could not appreciate the drive. If I'm a manager today and I see that drive in someone, I know what that person is looking for, and I will find a way to make sure that we give it to that person. I was like, even if I do this thing, they will not appreciate it. So that's how I now told Felix, I said, you know what, let's go and try it. At that time, I was 29, and I was going to become 40. I'd found my wife.
29 or 39?
29. I was going to turn 30. I was found the person I thought I was going to marry. I was like, in 1 year, I'll give birth. Things become harder. So I might not be able to take risk when I'm looking at these girls or my now daughter's face. And I was like, if I did it, I will still go back if I fail. So, and then we now left. And it wasn't, Moniepoint is not what it was today. It was actually really hard in the beginning. In the beginning, it was, of course, it was called Tima. And what we're building were software solutions for banks. So it's standard projects. You go to a bank, they give you a project. Those days, they will give us mobile applications to build. So like Sterling Bank, we built their mobile app. Unity Bank, then most of the banks use our merchant acquiring solution and corporate banking. Zenith Bank, First Bank, providers, almost all of them. And the nature of that business is that they will give you this project, they will pay you upfront, which allowed us to bootstrap because we had cash. But unfortunately, these banks had ridiculous internal processes and systems that the project can be there for the next 1 to 2 years. So it was, and I would look at the total addressable market, it was not interesting. But what that period did for us was taught us the discipline of execution, taught us how systems actually work in Nigeria and generally, and actually made us also, better builders. So, and that's how we actually started. And the rest is I can talk about how it became Moniepoint, but that's how Mutima
Yeah, that's
started.
actually, the other question I had. So one, I wanted to ask first, since you started, what would you say have been your biggest wins, but also the biggest challenges?
Let me start with challenge. I think the first challenge is what turned to this direction. The first challenge was after we built Sterling One Pay. Where's the Bolulu? Okay, did you work on One Pay? Yeah, so after we built Sterling One Pay, it was a revenue sharing arrangement where we were supposed to take 20% of what the bank was making. And it was a good model because it was a recurring revenue model, not like a contract model. And when the revenue started coming in, something like 5 million naira per month or 6 million naira per month, then the bank now said that, why should we be paying these boys this kind of money? It is too much. It will soon become 10 million, it will soon become 15 million. That's after we have killed ourselves. I lost tons of engineers to that project. That was the first time I cried in entrepreneurship because of the amount of stress. Yes, I believe there's a second time. I think I've cried twice. So there was a second time, and they're both related even to this project. So the first one was I cried because we needed to meet this deadline, and I was just being messed up by all the guys that were working on this. Anyway, we delivered it, and they were not like, it's too much, we can't pay you. You need to take an arrangement where it's no longer 20%, but it's 20% up to, say, maybe 8 million naira per month. When it's above that, it becomes 10, it becomes 15. Like, is this what we signed up for? And we had a contract. And the threat was that if you don't take it, we're going to build our own. You know what? And they said, you know why? Because we own the customer. You are just a technical person. And then I was like, and when they gave me that information was the second time I cried. I got that information from Polo Club, Ikoyi, and I was on my way back. I used to drive a white Benz E350. And I remember crying on the way back. And by the way, the car was my wife's home. I didn't have a car. Okay. Anyway. So I'm on my way back. And the reason is because you need to make payroll. And if you don't make payroll, the company's dead. So, and I was like, they're right. We're just farmers. I used to use that mentality. I'm sorry, the analogy that we're just farmers. At the end of it, these guys own the brand. I'm not doing this again. We're going to actually now own our brand. And we now decided to create our brand. So on going back, I logged up on that project and I was like, do whatever the fuck you want to do. Just pay me enough to be able to bootstrap to the next direction. And internet we regrouped and tried to go and raise capital. And I split the team into one to continue on legacy and the other one to now focus on the new things. So we now went to raise capital. We're lucky that that was when raising capital was hot. We raised capital on one flimsy PowerPoint document because people thought we were going to be the next InterSwitch. And that's when Quantum Capital saw us, and the fund was like, you know what? Under 2 weeks we closed. We closed like $2.5 million, $5 million under like 2 weeks or so. And I was like, thank you, this is enough. And from there we separated the team, and we focused on offline payments generally. In fintech, you only make money through payments, credit, or subscription fees generally. So for payments, it's either online or offline. And we need to do something online, need to do something. That was just the thinking, and we know how to build it. So people focused on Monify, somebody focused on Moniepoint. And when the numbers started coming in, like Moniepoint was growing in ridiculous ways fast. I even thought it was Monify that was going to go fast. But when I saw the numbers on Moniepoint, I realized that there's a deeply underserved segment in Nigeria. The unfortunate thing is all the people that innovate in Nigeria live in Magodo, Lekki, Ikoyi, Aja, and now London. We don't know what the people that are in Ikorodu or the people that are in Agege is even still close again, or Alagbado, that's even Lagos. Now let's talk about jobs. Let's talk about Kaduna. Let's talk about Porno. Let's talk about Zamfara. Nigeria is big, but we don't have proper visibility into what's going on, and it wasn't sexy. Doing offline then was not sexy. Everybody ignored offline then. It wasn't sexy. People online payment gateways are the cool things in 2021, but by the time we got it and those numbers started coming in, things like 100% month on month, and people are screaming. When customers start screaming at you at your products, you hit jackpot. And customers began to scream at us, then we now knew, okay, then there's something here, and the rest is history.
Very nice. So we answered the question around the challenges, but not the wins.
Oh yeah, there are wins. Tons of wins. So I have this habit
Pick your top two.
Top two. Honestly, there are tons of wins. Okay, so which one would I say top two? Maybe. What's it to me? I think the wins for me are almost usually. See, I can tell you cool things that everybody will clap about, but let me tell you the reality. As an entrepreneur, you see things before they come to life. Unfortunately, you don't. So, and when they now finally come to life, you don't get an eureka moment again. You don't get that. Yeah. So I think the wins for me are almost things that, like, when I see it internally, those are the biggest wins for me. Like, I've seen it, okay, now I see it, it clicks. But unfortunately, if I say it now, it's not sexy. Right? But I can now give you other sexy things, maybe when we're listed on FTE. In reality, it's not a big deal. So I can still tell you some of the things that were wins at the back of my mind. The first win was when I clearly figured out how we will structure our distribution. And I could see it. It wasn't clear at the back of my mind, but it was very clear to me. So that's not sexy. Sorry. But that's the reality. The second thing to me was when I saw that Moniepoint was going to be big also, when the numbers started coming in. At that time, maybe we're doing maybe when we did maybe 10,000 transactions in a day. Today we are doing close to 20 million. And thank you. So these are moments that for you, those are the moments you feel excited the most, you get the energy, then you now get into doing the work to make that reality come to pass.
Very nice. Maybe I should please clap. I have to wrap up, but there's a question I really wanted to ask. You once talked about 3 types of risk in doing business: macroeconomic risk, market, and execution risk.
Yeah.
Please school us.
Okay, let's start with macro. It can't be bigger than your macro. It can't be bigger than your market. and we all can handle an example right now. If you're in Nigeria or your business is in Nigeria and you're earning in Naira, you know what exchange rate is doing to you. And sometimes if you are fucked enough that you can't outgrow the depreciation in the exchange rate, you just see the value of your company deeply. And it's a risk that unfortunately you can't do much about other than find a way to diversify those macro risks. So that's one of it. The second one is market risk. This has to do with things like competition. This has to do with things like things that are outside your own control, but how the market is reacting. Trends, things like AI, and what you need to do to be able to manage market risk is for you to accelerate your own execution, to just generally be ahead, and don't let competition be able to catch you. And the nature of the world is number one and number two, and maybe number three. We own 80% of the market. It's just the nature of the world. When you look at search, it's Google and who is supposed to be now Bing. If you look at phones, it's Android and iOS. If you look at in our market, it's Moniepoint and say OPay. The rest are actually really tiny. Sorry.
We're not really sorry.
I didn't mean it that way. In payment gateways, it's in between PayStack for Time and Monify. I declared number 3, right? Yeah, but Monify is smaller than being clear. It's smaller than PayStack and Monify, but it's but it's still sizable. So yes, just giving such examples. In Nigeria, the phone market is Transsion, and maybe Samsung or Apple. I don't know which one it is. Samsung, okay. So that's the nature of the world. And I think as founders, we should have that at the back of our mind, that you know when you know that you have a chance, so that you don't waste too much time and regroup. And this is, but it's also okay if what you want to build is what you call a lifestyle business. And that's perfectly okay. At the end of the day, what matters to everybody. So at the end of our lives is happiness. At the end of the day, all this is a proxy to feeling good about ourselves. Everything we're doing here, being a founder, not being a founder, being an employee, at the end of the day, we all have the same results that cause how we feel internally. So it's also okay to build a lifestyle business. It's not big number 1, number 2, number 3, but it pays your bills, makes you do whatever you want to do. So, but then the macro risk is just to realize that if what you are choosing is to become one of the big players, market risk rather, to be one of the big players, the market will test you, regulators will test you, competition will test you. Then the last one is execution, which is the one that you can ultimately control. The hardest thing is executing. It's easy to think, it's easy to dream, it's easy to strategize. When I do interviews and somebody comes to me that what I love to do is strategic things, you feel that interview.
In case you want to interview at Moniepoint.
Don't come and tell me that I love strategy. No. It means that you don't love doing that. Because at the end of the day, thinking is easier. Once you know your market very well, coming up with new directions of where you want to go is as easy as thinking about it in maybe a week or so. But doing it is a different story. So the execution risks now the people that you need to bring in, at the end of people, extremely important. You cannot be bigger than the quality of the people that you have in the organization. That's actually why we call this organization team APT first, APT team. We hired some of the nicest guys that we could see, and we still retain that high standards of the kind of people that will come into the organization. So the people, the systems that you have for managing performance, for giving clarity in where people need, in what needs to be built. The systems, the culture that you have internally our culture is one of openness or technical depth, no ego, candor, grit, passion. What's the last one? But the most important ones, if you want someone, it should be grit, it should be technical depth, it should be no ego. So that's, if you can put all those things together, then the rest is about luck and timing happening to you.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Is there anybody that wants to ask this question? I'm going to wrap up. Wow. That happened pretty fast. So,
thank you so much, Tosin. I think you're one of the founders that offer a different path. So it's good to, thank you for sharing this story, right? I suppose my question to you is, you joined InterSwitch, right? A lot of us here work for big companies, and we see how internally, right, you try to convince this, the management, and you didn't see it, right? And then you said InterSwitch was a cool company at some point, and they became uncool. How do you prevent Moniepoint? Like, how do you think about it? Because this is you're riding a wave, right? How do you prevent Moniepoint, I suppose, from being an uncool company?
Good question. Well, the fish rots from the head. I think the day I personally stop, or whoever leads the organization rather, because it doesn't have to be me forever, the day you stop doing all the right things that will make the organization keep on growing, I think that's the day you become uncool. Now, what are the things that make companies cool? The first one is the substance. Second one is the storytelling. So, and I don't think it's not sustainable to have storytelling that is not based on substance. So you need to have both. And substance ultimately is about impact. Impact is about growth. Impact is about growth in different metrics, revenue, transaction volume. So as long as the organization keeps having impact, keeps growing, then you always have the substance. Second one is bloody fucking tell your story, man. As long as I'm shy, Didi is shy too. Maybe not as shy as I am, but we at least still manage to bring out a team that will tell our stories. So as long as you keep doing those two things, you will remain being cool. And at the end of the day, it's the responsibility of the leader to ensure that this execution happens. And as long as you keep doing that, you continue in the market. So I guess InterSwitch growth rate and storytelling kind of, by the side, especially because people feel they are now old school because they could have done the things that some of us are doing now, from us to Paystack to Flutterwave. But then again, they still played their role, they are still playing their role, they are still the backbone for many transaction processing, even up to today.
The people in the fintech in Nigeria today, they are very, very, they want to go to market very fast, so they want to execute also, right? But the issue eventually is, at the end of the day, the best product eventually wins. But then it takes time. And the fear is, if I don't go fast, someone might go first, which is what Opiate is, right? So how do you balance taking your time to build well, right, while the market is moving, right? And also not just saying I want to launch, I want to execute, but executing very well. And how do you execute well very fast? Maybe, yeah.
I don't think there's the answer to that is it's depending on the circumstance. I think the general rule is do what is enough. Do what is enough and launch as fast as you can launch that thing. I think that's the general rule. And I think you always judge it. You cannot go and say that this thing must be perfect before it launches. Let me eliminate that one. You cannot also go out to the market fully when your product does not make any sense. And that's why they invented or mentioned that concept of minimum viable product. Oftentimes, when you know your market and you're inside, you will have clarity of the features that are required and the ones that you can still push aside. I think that's what it is. And you can also know some of the internal features that you can devote a lot of engineering effort into, and the ones in which you can, do a shoddy job. At the end of the day, it is whoever is in that building or in that circumstance, in that execution, that will be able to make that call. So I can't give you a specific rule. If you give me the business that you're trying to build or the specific feature, I might be able to advise and say, okay, you know what, do this first and go back. But at the end of the day, make sure that whatever gets into the hand of the customer makes them still promote your organization. Don't let it lead to so much frustration that they would talk bad of you. It doesn't have to be feature complete, but it should be enough that you should not lose your customers. So I think that's the general rule. You can't go both ways. You can't just wait and build perfect. You can also just, yep.
Amazing. And now, my final question, Tosin. What has been the biggest lesson you've learned in this journey to building Moniepoint?
Happiness is universal. I think that's it. So I think that I don't see myself. That's why at the end of the day, people see me, and we've done what people consider extraordinary. At the end of the day, all the things. Yes, I have money. Please believe me. Please believe me. Please believe me. Please believe me. At the end of the day, happiness is universal. And I think that's what we're also looking for. I personally will not have been happy if I didn't do what I am doing. I am saying this so that by the time we get to our 60s or so we're now in the UK, and you see the way Europeans, so that by the time Europeans live, they're not so, exactly. And I also think that the environment in which a lot of us Nigerians grew up, where things are hard and you must hustle hard, otherwise things will be really hard for you, has accustomed our minds into it. So one of the biggest lessons I've just learned is at the end of the day, the connector between Dangote, Tosin Eniolorunda, everybody that works on Moniepoint, and everybody here, and everyone in Nigeria, is the happiness that will go through all our journey. I admit that you need to achieve a minimum level of financial ability to live a comfortable life. I admit that. But at the end of the day, if the return on happiness for increasing amount of money is marginal at the end of the day. I think that's one of the major things that I have learned.
Happiness is universal. Thank you so much. Let me wrap up the YouTube show. I was about to stand up, but I forgot that one on air. Thank you guys for watching my YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe. If you want to go on your phone now, it's Itimi on YouTube. But so much, thank you for listening. And Tosin, thank you so much for telling the story.